Understanding audiences, taxonomy, and roles. Just about everywhere you go in Centralpoint, you will see this common denominator. The records that you're managing deal with a lot of different classification types. Of course, we might be putting in a news article, or we might be putting in a product, or we might be putting in any kind of record. And you'll notice at the bottom of your form, we have the option to assign taxonomy, audiences, and roles. So basically, this is kind of the secret sauce of Centralpoint. By tagging records based on what type of thing they are, for example, this might be a news type, this might be a national press release. So that deals with the type of thing that it is. Next, we have to consider, all right, if we have a lot of microsites or departmental sites under this enterprise, who does this address? I mean, does this press release, do we want it to show up in each and every one of all of our audiences? Do we want to have it only show up in the main site and perhaps one of our satellite offices or two of our satellite offices? So basically, this audiences have to do with the microsites, departments, and locations, if you will, that you're serving. Audiences is simply our name for that. We have to call it something, and the way we look at it is that these are different audiences that you're trying to reach, whether they're microsites or whether they're different field offices, etc. So by tagging what type of record it is, by tagging which offices should inherit that record, this one record will now kind of cascade down, trickle down to these local facilities. Finally, we normally assume that anyone within those offices will be able to see this record. So typically the default is everyone. So everyone in regional hospital and Maine will see this record under the type press release, the national press release. But if we want to be specific, we might say, look, this is a record that's only for the view of the CEO or for anyone in the human resources department. So roles gets very granular. It's probably the most granular. Within your different audiences, who are these different people individually or different types of people who can access this record? So this demonstration just to help you understand how these work and how they relate to Centralpoint overall. First of all, let's take a look at audiences. We'll kind of approach it in that order. Audiences have to do with the kind of the makeup and structure of the site that you have. So for example, under your main organization, you might have a couple different audiences. We might have a audience for that regional facility down the street. We might have another audience for private logged in members. Even within that audience, we might have a little channel just for nurses. When they log in, they get to see their information. So audiences can be created very simply within the tool, and we're just going to create a new audience just so you can see how it's done. So I'm going to say this is for specialty group. And we're going to create this specialty group is going to live under the intranet, specifically under the nursing section. So we have now this new group called specialty group that we will find under the intranet, under the nursing area, and here under specialty group. So as you notice, it kind of cascades. There's a family tree order to these audiences. Now, by simply creating that audience, all of Centralpoint knows about that new audience. For example, if I wanted to go back to those news records and say, look, this particular news article is really only for the benefit of that new group known as specialty group. So anyone within the specialty group can now see that. It won't show up on any other site, but it'll show up there. Or we might want to have it show up in all of these sites, all of the departments. It's up to you. So once we create that new audience, what's nice is we've kind of developed this, we've engineered this in reverse, so that any event that you add, any document, anything now in Centralpoint knows about this new entity known as specialty group under nursing. So what's nice is, as your organization expands, let's say you acquire a new company or you start a new division, we can add that new audience, and now it's part of the family, and we can now address their needs as we expand our organization. Even down to the tools known as email broadcast. If we want to send out an email alert, let's say we want to send out an email newsletter to everyone within the specialty group, and this might go out every week or two, and it will push out this message to those people that of course would only pertain to, you know, specialty group. So this might be the latest events or news or happenings within specialty group. So an audience is a way to segment your data so that it only reaches that channel or make it part of the family, you know, if we want to manage content across all the channels. Now, an audience, to be a website, to be a bona fide website, needs a couple things to exist as a website. It needs to have a home page. So we might want to create a home page called homepage for specialty group, where I put down hello there, and I'll just put up an image just so we can see what it looks like. Just upload a simple image just so you can see when we create this site, you know, that it was there and it makes sense. So we're going to put up a little happy face image on the home page of our audience known as specialty group. And there it is right there. So it now has a home page. The other thing it needs is a design record. Now, typically, you know, these new sites might inherit the design you're using already for your main site. They might have their own unique design if we want to make them look special. So for this example, I'm just going to inherit an existing design just to make it easy. And I'm going to say, let's apply this standard design to our new group known as specialty group. Okay. Now, what we've done here is we've added a new website, albeit very basic, to the enterprise. And if we take a look at our kind of our org chart, this is an organizational structure that shows under our main site we now have a new group under the intranet, specifically under nursing, that is called specialty group. And if we click on specialty group, we will now have this website called specialty group with our little happy face. So this new audience can inherit any record that has been tagged all. So for example, if you had previously posted news articles and whatnot and tagged it to all of your children, well, specialty group, being a child, new child, would have inherited those things that were previously tagged all, which is why it has content in here. So content that we see in the site is content that has been previously tagged to all audiences, which is why this newly created child has records in it. So that's important to know. If we go back to the content and take a look at how we tag it, let's just show you more specifically why that audience is important. I might have a record that only belongs on specialty group, and I'm going to say that that is sample article 5. So sample article 5, we're going to tag that to the group known as specialty group. We want to make sure it's not on any other site. So it's called sample article 5. We're going to submit that. And now when we return to the main site and we look in our news section, we will not see specialty, we will not see sample article 5. It's not in the list here. Now it's not in the list because it's not tagged to that main site. If we were to go into our new group, specialty group, we will find it in that site within its news section. And here is that record called sample article 5. Just loading. And here it is right there, sample article 5. So it only lives in that specialty group. So that kind of gives you an example, or helps you understand, how we're managing this content, because it's very, it can be very complex. You might have some records that appear in some audiences, but not others. You might want to have content cascade all the way down. So because your organization has many tiers to it, this organizational structure is necessary to keep up with all of those tiers and keep up with those divisions and departments that you haven't acquired yet, or as your organization grows. So just a little background, audiences are found under site architecture. It is a parental structure. So if you want to see the children under this site, here it says right here, children. Let's click on that. Here are the children. Under the intranet, it too has children. And under that, we have children of that group. So we have specialty group lives under that. So that's, it's a parental structure. Okay. The other thing that lives under site architecture is taxonomy. And again, taxonomy has to do with what type of things we're managing. Here you can see all of the different taxonomy lists we're using. And earlier we saw under news, we saw different news types. We saw specifically press releases, national or local. Under national, we may have had an option called state. And just to show you how taxonomy works, I might create a new taxonomy called global news. And I'm going to create this and put this under my news taxonomy. And of course, global news, I might have a couple different options. I might have Asian, those articles relating to Asia, for example, but I think you get the gist. I'm going to put that under global news. And I'm going to put down also European. And European will live under main, under news, specifically under global news. So what I've done here is I've created a new taxonomy type for my news articles. And now when I tag sample article 4 to this new taxonomy type called global news, and it relates to European news, it now has that relationship. If I then say sample article 8 also has a relationship to global news, European, well, we've now just created very quickly a crosswalk and a relationship between those two records, sample article 4 and sample article 8. So if we return to the site and we take a look at our news, we now have enumerated, we have global news types European. So that's part of the family. The European type, when I click on it, should give me two records, records 4 and records 8. When I click on record 4, it will automatically crosswalk me to other European news articles, which would include sample article 8, and vice versa. So taxonomy plays a major role in the classification of your data. It now also lets us do a search for anything European, for example. And in the results for my search for European, we will have sample article 8, sample article 4, and looks like we have other references to the word European. I might search the word global, because that was also a taxonomy type. We have sample article 8, sample article 4. So taxonomy becomes a very helpful way of giving metadata and structured metadata to your records and crosswalking them between them. Typically, when we import in your data, we can import and inherit much of this taxonomy, so we can pre-build a lot of these trees for you. But taxonomy is often an ever-changing and evolving thing. For example, if your market were to expand and you're now marketing to the Middle East, we can now make that, again, another child to global news, and we can submit that. We might get very specific and say within the Middle East we might have United Arab Emirates, which again is a child of news, it is a child of global, and it is a child of Middle East. And so now when we revisit the news module, we then can tag this record to global news as it relates to the Middle East and specifically United Arab Emirates. So a lot we can do there. Now, another neat thing we often do with taxonomy is, besides the taxonomy of the record, you know, a press release for United Arab Emirates, Middle East, we can also have a parallel taxonomy. So for example, in addition to the news types, we can also say, well, in addition to what kind of news it is, it might also deal with medical specialty known as dermatology. So that means that we can have multiple tiers of taxonomy working in unison so that we can serve different classification structures. And a good example of that might be, you know, with very highly scientific records, it might relate to a particular government code. Additionally, it might relate to certain topics like the human heart. It might relate to, you know, a certain type of procedure like aortic stenosis. You know, so this can get very, very deep. Now, I'm not saying it has to be that deep for you, but the scalability of our taxonomy is built to sustain any complex classification structure. So, and it's better to be prepared with that scalability So don't let taxonomy intimidate you. Taxonomy is wonderful. By the way, later on down the road, let's say you set up a taxonomy that's incorrect initially. Not a problem. Let's say global news is really not the right child of news. Maybe we want to have it live under a different type. So we can always go back later and change the relationships that exist within taxonomy without hurting anything. For example, if I go into news and I go to my global news types, right now it is a child of news, and I wish to make it a child of universal keywords and a child of medical specialty. So what I've done there is I've kind of moved the furniture around a little bit so that our taxonomy now enumerates in the proper order that we want it to. Now when I look at taxonomy, you'll see no global news types here under news. Instead, it lives under this area here, universal keywords, under medical specialties, and then buried deep here is the global news type. So, you know, we totally understand that evolution of your taxonomy and how you classify things is going to change. Fortunately, we've developed a system to change with it. So we do anticipate that change. We don't want to be surprised by surprise. We want to anticipate the surprise. Okay. Finally, we'd like to talk about roles. Now, again, back to our record. Our record has the ability to be, you know, tagged by its right taxonomy, by which audiences get to see it, but then also by the type of person who sees it, right? So roles are managed here under admin. And this is where we're able to create new roles. So I might create a new role here called sales managers. Now again, like audiences, like taxonomy, creating a new role anywhere I go in the system, any module now knows about it. So we've kind of reverse engineered it, or we've engineered it in reverse, so that this record can now tag to the role known as only sales manager, so that maybe this only deals with the sales manager within a particular district or region, you know, of the company. Now, roles have a lot to do with how people are logging in, because the only way we know what their role is if we are somehow getting them to sign up, or we're storing the record, or when they log in, we're authenticating against Active Directory, LDAP, or other databases. Because when they log in, their credentials will tell us what role they are. You know, based on their username and password, we'll know that that's a salesman, or that's the CEO, or that's a VP, whoever it is. So global logging gets into that. We won't discuss that during this, we won't get into that too deep during this session, but roles are defined by that, but the labels that you give them live here. Now, we'll likely set up the various roles for you. If you wanted to add new roles in the future, that's fine. And that is what allows us to determine who gets to see what information. For example, I might only see some information here as a public user, where I can see these types of records, but if I happen to log in, the login will determine who I am, my name, my role. You know, welcome, John, you are now logged in with the role of private. And because I'm now logged in with the role of private, well, any of these records that have been tagged to private, I can now see. So there are records in this list or in this site that were not available to me earlier because my role had not been established. Okay, so again, role determines the privileges of the user. And all of this seems very, very difficult or very involved, but it's really not. You just remember this. Everything in Centralpoint has to consider three things. It has to consider what type of thing it is, which audiences or groups or microsites are inheriting this record, and then finally, who specifically, what types of people within those groups can see it. And this is really a great thing, because this means we can now centralize, hence the name Centralpoint, all of your organization's information for the benefit of everybody. Employees, clients, partners, vendors, doesn't matter. And again, we can start out very simple with that. When we build your initial portal, it might just have a few very basic taxonomy types. It might have only a few audiences initially. and only a few roles. Typically, we normally see a lot of sites that just manage content between what is public or available to everyone versus what is private. A lot of organizations, they just want to treat any employee equal, and we'll give all the employees access to this, but all of the people who don't have the privilege will get access to that. Well, the good news is as you start to get very granular, the more specific your roles are long term, the better the personalized user experience for your members. Think about it. If I know the difference between a West Coast sales manager or an East Coast sales manager, well, I can now give each sales manager only their sales results for that period or their information when they log in. So the goal here, I think, long term is to give roles a little bit of thinking and think about how you can carve out new segmentation for your people so that you can service them better. In the publishing community, we see that as being known as demographic information. We might have a role of male versus female, if this is a publisher trying to reach various target markets, for example. So I might have male versus female, and I might have over 40 or under 40, So there I've just created some basic roles. Well, this means that now as I'm tagging my content, I can say, this is a great article. It deals with, men's health and whatever, but it really pertains to not everybody in our site. It only appeals to males who are over 40 years old. And there's a lot of different ways you could do that. You could have one entry, male over 40, male under 40. This is just a very basic way of saying, how can I target these people in the way that you need to? And because every one of our organizations are different, our clients, we don't know what you call your taxonomy, we don't know what you call your channels, and we don't know what you call your roles. This is why Centralpoint, when we're building your portal, we'll ask you questions like, okay, who are those channels, and what types of things do you manage, and what roles do you serve, just to help familiarize you with what that is. So just to recap, all records in Centralpoint require taxonomy be selected. Actually, you don't have to select any taxonomy. I just think it's important that if you do select taxonomy, it will be better found within your site. Taxonomy, audiences, and roles will properly determine that everybody gets the right information within your portal. And we thank you very much for giving us your time to watch this video. Thank you.